What if we've been thinking about artificial intelligence all wrong? What if it's not some super complex niche software, but something more like a basic utility? I'm talking about something as fundamental as the electricity that's powering your screen right now. That's the powerful vision from Microsoft's CEO, Satya Nadella, that we're going to dig into today.
So, right off the bat, this is the big question. Is AI the next electricity? And when you frame it like that, it completely changes the conversation, right? Suddenly, it's not a tool for a handful of tech wizards. This metaphor suggests AI is on its way to becoming this ubiquitous grid powering pretty much the entire global economy. Okay, so let's really unpack this idea. AI as the new electricity. Because look, this isn't just some catchy phrase. It's actually a whole strategic framework for how to think about the future.
And this quote from Nadella himself, it just gets right to the heart of it. He says, it's just like electricity. You just need a ubiquitous grid of energy and tokens that will power the rest of the economy. So the goal here is to build this kind of invisible infrastructure that delivers AI power, what he calls tokens, to everyone everywhere, just like our electrical grid does today.
Okay, so he mentioned tokens. What is a token exactly? Well, think of it as the basic currency of AI. You know how we measure electricity in kilowatt hours? We can basically measure AI output in tokens. It's a way to take this super abstract idea of intelligence and turn it into something you can actually measure and distribute, like a real commodity. And to build on that, remember Steve Jobs' famous metaphor for the personal computer? He called it a bicycle for the mind. Well, Nadella's argument is that AI basically takes that idea and puts it on steroids. It's not just a bicycle, it's a cognitive amplifier that gives every single person access to what feels like infinite minds at their fingertips.
So this all sounds great, right? But how does it actually become a reality? I mean, that's the big question. And that brings us to our next section, building the global AI grid. Because if AI really is the new electricity, then you got to ask, how do we build the power plants and the power lines for it?
Well, on the supply side, it really boils down to three huge things. First, you've got to build what you could call token factories. And that's just a cool name for massive data centers. They're basically the power plants of this new digital world. Second, you have to modernize our actual energy grids to even support these things. And third, there has to be this relentless, non-stop drive to make the entire process cheaper and way more efficient. And the key metric that's driving this whole vision, it's this little phrase, tokens per dollar per watt. So what does that mean? It's actually pretty simple. How much intelligence can you generate for every single dollar you spend and every single watt of energy you use? The better that ratio gets, the cheaper and more accessible AI becomes for all of us.
But, as this incredibly powerful grid gets built, it brings up a really crucial and, let's be honest, a kind of worrying question. If this technology is so powerful, isn't there a risk that it just widens the gap between the haves and the have-nots? Could it actually create an even more polarized world?
And this is what Nadella calls the Great Diffusion Challenge. It's all about this one question. How do we make sure the benefits of this new utility get spread out evenly and don't just get concentrated in the hands of a lucky few?
And look, that fear is totally understandable. The early data seems to show that AI is being adopted fastest in developed, highly educated economies. So you have to wonder, are we just heading for a new kind of global divide?
But here's the big counterargument. Unlike, say, the PC revolution, this time we already have the rails in place for this thing to spread globally and fast. I'm talking about widespread mobile phone adoption and global internet connectivity. It means AI can be delivered to almost anywhere on the planet, way, way faster than any technology that came before it.
And here's a powerful, real-world example to back that up. An early AI bot, and we're talking older tech here, was able to help a rural farmer in India access information on complicated government farm subsidies all in his local language. I mean, that's a perfect illustration of how AI can empower people at the grassroots level, not just folks in fancy corporate boardrooms.
All right, so let's shift gears a little. We've talked about the global picture, but what does this mean for individual businesses and organizations? Well, that brings us to the corporate AI playbook.
Nadella actually lays out a pretty simple three-step formula for any company that wants to transform. First up is mindset. You can't just bolt AI on your old ways of doing things. You have to be willing to rethink entire workflows from the ground up. Second is skill set. People have to actually use the tools, get their hands dirty, and really learn what they can and can't do. That's how you build trust. And third, and this is crucial, is your data set. The AI is only as smart as the information you feed it. Your company's unique context, your unique knowledge, that's what makes it powerful.
And this whole situation creates this fascinating competitive landscape that he calls the AI adoption barbell. Think about it. On one end of the barbell, you have small, super agile companies. They can build their whole business around AI from scratch. No old systems holding them back. Their challenge? Just getting the resources to scale up. Then, on the other end, you have the huge established companies. Their advantage is massive amounts of data and existing customer relationships. But their challenge? It's overcoming that internal inertia, trying to fit these new tools into old, complicated ways of working.
So, this all brings us to one final, huge question about the future. In this new world, are we going to see one single AI model to rule them all? One dominant force? And that brings us to our final section, a new world of models. And just so we're clear, when we say models, we're talking about those foundational AI engines, things like GPT-4 or Llama, that power all these tools. And the answer to that last question? Well, it might not be what you think. The answer, at least according to Nadella, is a really clear no. We are not heading towards some kind of AI monopoly. The future is what he calls a multi-model world. So here's the really crucial takeaway. Your competitive advantage in the future isn't going to come from having the single best model. Nope. It's going to come from how you combine things. First, you'll need to use a mix of all kinds of models, open source, closed source, custom ones. Second, you have to feed them your unique data. That's your secret weapon. And third, here's the real magic, what Nadella calls orchestration or harness engineering. The best way to think about it is like being a conductor of an orchestra. The skill isn't just playing the violin, it's knowing how to combine all the different instruments, all the different models and data to create something amazing that solves a specific problem. That is the new IP. And that really leaves us with one last big idea to chew on. In the end, the winners in this new era, they're probably not going to be the people who invent the absolute most advanced AI. Instead, they're going to be the diffusers, the ones who are the best at applying it, at weaving it into their businesses and their communities to solve real, actual problems. Because the true revolution, when you get right down to it, isn't just about invention, it's about adoption.